Elrado Voice presents Rituals for Virtual Meetings, Creative Ways to Engage People and Strengthen Relationships. Originally published by Wiley. Written by Kürşat Özenç, Ph.D., and Glenn Fajardo. This audiobook was created using Elrado Voice AI. Kürşat dedicates this book to Margaret, Kerem, Teoman, and Layla. Glenn dedicates this book to Mom and Dad. Praise for Rituals for Virtual Meetings. Kürşat and Glenn offer useful insights about our everyday interactions, and they turned those insights into practical tools. This is a handbook for anyone who has ever wanted to transform a virtual meeting from an exhausting slog into an energizing and enjoyable playground. Emi Kolawol, General Troublemaker and Head of Internal Communications at X, the Moonshot Factory. Workplace rituals are a powerful, unspoken tool to build community, strengthen culture, and enhance belonging, whether you're in person or in a virtual workspace. Kürşat and Glenn's compelling compendium is a roll-up-your-sleeves deep dive into innovative, business-savvy ritual design that will help you and your coworkers purposefully, meaningfully, and creatively gather together online. Annette Ferrara, Workplace Experience Director, IDEO. For centuries, humans have innately understood that small, tangible acts done routinely can carry value and meaning. These rituals can help build the muscle memory of an organization's culture. I am excited that this book helps now more humans to leverage the power of rituals and bring them to life in new ways, preparing organizations for a new, virtual normal. The authors offer guidance on how to experiment with rituals in virtual meetings, taking an organization's culture ultimately from good to great. Dr. Frederick G. Furt, Google's Chief Innovation Evangelist, Adjunct Professor, Stanford University. Part 1. How Rituals Make Virtual Meetings More Engaging, Productive, and Meaningful. Chapter 1. The Power of Rituals in Transforming Virtual Meetings. Introduction. Imagine if tomorrow, like literally tomorrow, the day after today, there was some kind of global disaster, and suddenly humans could interact only through computers. It's unclear when, or if, face-to-face contact will be possible again. It might be a while. Maybe that disaster is a zombie apocalypse, or a sudden change in the atmosphere, or something else. This is a prompt for an exercise called Virtual Humanity that one of us, Glenn, developed in 2017. We never imagined this exercise would become too real in early 2020. People were scrambling to make virtual work in schools, businesses, nonprofits, governments, and communities. Virtual collaboration had previously been an emerging topic in future of work discussions, but suddenly became a pressing topic in present of work conversations. People were suddenly struggling to connect. Humans are social beings. We are wired to connect with other people to feel alive and well. Without connection, our very existence is in danger and crisis. In the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020, we found ourselves in the midst of such a crisis across all walks of life. Social distancing made social feel distant. In theory, we had a set of miracle technologies that could help us stay connected. When you think about it, it's kind of crazy that technology such as video conferencing or the internet itself could be so widely available. But in reality, it was frustrating for many people. Why? Part of it was the limitations of the technology. For example, there were many news articles about difficulties on Zoom calls, with common themes such as Zoom not accounting for things such as cues, synchrony, and mimicry, how humans synchronize and mimic each other, eye contact, who's where in the grid, and constantly seeing yourself. However, there was a more fundamental problem. Many of the norms and conventions from in-person meetings didn't work well in the virtual meetings that we were suddenly thrown into. People largely tried to recreate what they did in person in their virtual meetings, largely because that's the only experience that was familiar to them. Many people approached virtual meetings with a deficit mindset, where it's never as good as in person, and they ended up with sad, second-rate copies of in-person experiences. So the screen-bound interactions frustrated people, made them feel awkward, and tired them out. People longed for better human connection. However, if we are honest with ourselves, we weren't thriving at connecting and building relationships in person before the COVID-19 pandemic forced people completely online. The so-called loneliness epidemic had been sweeping the world. By 2020, 3 out of 5 Americans were feeling lonely and a sense of abandonment. The UK government, for instance, assigned a minister to address the challenges of loneliness. By 2015, China was raising the loneliest generation as the one-child policy was just ending. Loneliness is related to higher health risk and premature death. Work life has been reinforcing this feeling of isolation with its sterile workplace conditions and its culture. Engagement across the U.S. workforce has been fluctuating around 30% for the past 2 decades. The disengagement and a sense of loneliness increases when coworkers don't have shared goals. Meetings are one of the most prominent manifestations of lack of common purpose. 67% of meetings are seen as failures. Meetings are perceived both as a necessity and a curse. On the one hand, they can be key to moving things forward, but on the other hand, they often end up as missed opportunities to connect and as distractions to deep work. We believe meetings are moments to be elevated and nurtured. Good meetings help people build relationships, align on purpose, and get things done, whether a meeting is in person or virtual. However, virtual is newer terrain for most people. The challenge is the disorienting unfamiliarity. The opportunity is the possibility to have deeper connections, shared purpose, and greater accomplishments wherever we are. Rituals can support us with scaffolding as we find our footing in virtual meetings. Our perspective is informed by our experiences in virtual collaboration and ritual design, including both of our teaching experiences at the D.school, aka the Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design at Stanford University. For 12 years, Glenn has been a practitioner of virtual collaboration, working with people and organizations across 6 continents engaged in social impact work. He specializes in teaching classes and workshops on how to collaborate virtually, such as design across borders. Kürşat has been teaching and researching rituals with students and partner organizations both in the US and in Europe. He shared his recent learnings from his teaching and consulting in Rituals for Work. Our perspective is rooted in a vision that virtual meetings can be satisfying experiences with high intensity and high quality human connection, like a good movie. The inspiration for this vision comes from an unusual place: Sufi concepts of time and space. Kürşat grew up in a culture where mythical Sufi stories shape the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Basti Zaman and Tayi Mekan. In Sufism, the concept of Bast-i Zaman articulates the possibility of expanding time within a set time. A surprising number of important things can happen in a short amount of time when there's alignment between the individuals and a higher purpose. For instance, you can finish a month-long task in an hour when you experience this alignment and connection. In organizational psychology research, Jane Dutton talks about a similar idea with her high-quality connections concept. She defines a high-quality connection as a shorter-term interaction you have with someone virtually or face-to-face, in which both people feel lit up and energized by the connection. Jane articulates how to nurture such a rich relationship with empathy, resilience, and openness. The concept of Tayi Mekan adds another layer to the high-quality connections. If a Sufi passes certain spiritual states of consciousness, There is a sense in which he can be present in multiple places at once. It's somewhat analogous to a person being virtually present to colleagues in different parts of the world. But the concept is deeper than that. You might have noticed that there's a difference between simply appearing on a screen in a virtual meeting and feeling present to your colleagues. In Sufism, multiple presences happen when people feel a core presence of a shared goal and purpose, i.e., unity with a higher cause. Virtual meetings are most engaging when participants feel a strong sense of shared purpose, and rituals can help. There's a strong body of ritual know-how that is rooted in centuries-old traditions of connection and community, from Sufism to Zen Buddhism. More principles from such traditions are waiting to be rediscovered as ways to guide virtual connection and community. How do we make this vision of core presence and connection a reality? We draw upon 3 inspirational spaces. 1. Waves of experimentation during the pandemic. 2. Audiovisual arts and game design. 3. Cognitive science and organizational psychology. During the COVID-19 pandemic, preventive measures such as shelter-in-place forced people to connect with other people virtually, and the world felt like a big laboratory of social interactions. From virtual whiteboard games to sing-along rituals of Italian neighborhoods, these experiments created energy to define new ways of interacting and participating. We think experimentation can be further sharpened with the tools of design thinking, where we notice underlying needs, define actionable opportunities, and experiment rapidly. We are inspired by what we can draw from audiovisual arts and game design. There's a lot we can learn from how movies, radio shows, and games create alternate worlds that we can enter, engage in, and come out changed. For example, consider screen fatigue. How often do you get screen fatigue when watching movies or Netflix? It's probably a lot less often than you do with video conference meetings. But why? Some of it has to do with the level of concentration required, but some of it has to do with how movies are in some ways closer to how we see the world. We'll explain that and other inspirations in Chapter 3. This book will help you plan your meetings with a narrative structure so they feel a little more exciting and memorable, a little more like a movie. This book will also draw on cognitive science and organizational psychology. These fields have critical insights that help us interact in more human ways when we are not in the same room. When we understand a bit more about how our brain works and how groups work, we can create meetings that feel more human using technologies available today. Helping you do that in your virtual meetings is the goal of this book. Challenges of virtual meetings. If we reflect on our relationships, we would discover that meetings, in the broader sense of the term, are the cornerstone of our work and social lives. From two-person coffee chats to gatherings of thousands of people, we meet to talk, explore, and do things together. When we shift from in-person meetings to virtual, we observe the following challenges. Our use of our senses changes. During a physical experience, such as an annual retreat party with our colleagues, we use all our senses. People without disabilities can see, hear, smell, touch, and taste. The music we hear, the food we eat, and the friends we see at that party can combine to create special moments. Research shows that we use our senses in pairs. For instance, vision and sound complement each other to increase our understanding of space. How we use our senses changes dramatically with the way most virtual meetings are run today. There's an overload to hearing and seeing, and an underload to touching, smelling, and tasting, which can lead to getting burned out. Without the engagement of a broader array of senses, we have less fulfilling experiences. To have more fulfilling virtual experiences, we need to learn how we can engage our different senses together when we are not in the same place. Tech is not quite there yet. Katie is a senior manager at a medium-sized company. She leads a team of 6 people while being part of multiple cross-functional initiatives with her peers in the company. She spends her days on back-to-back virtual meetings in front of a laptop across multiple time zones. She feels drained after work, making it hard to connect with her family. Research shows that when people are using video conferencing during virtual meetings, they experience a different cognitive load. As psychiatrist Emily Williams described, with video conferencing, we both have too much and too little. We have too much of the illusion of presence and too little of the information that comes with physical presence. There can be slight delays that throw you off. We're not sure how long to look, where to look, and when to do so. If you stared at people's faces too much with video conferencing in 2020, you'd experience this dissonance in a way that forced you to expend extra effort and energy. And so, Katie gets drained. Social expectations are unclear. The year 2020 will partly be remembered as the year of awkward virtual social gatherings. Larry lives with his daughter and wife. They attended 10 virtual social gatherings together in a month. The ambiguity during those well-intentioned gatherings became wearisome, with countless awkward moments when people didn't know what to say to whom. When we get together for the sake of a project in a work context, we at least have some sense of direction since there's a shared goal of completing something. When we get together virtually for strictly social reasons, it can be hard to deeply connect with people. Up to this point in history, the intimacy that we feel with most of our friends and family has been mediated by the spatial relationship between our bodies. When we suddenly could not be in the same physical spaces, we didn't understand how to sustain connections. In unfamiliar virtual terrain and without a clear purpose for social gatherings, we didn't know what to do when we were together, and it was socially awkward to leave. Unfamiliar context disorients. The previous 3 challenges all contribute to a broader challenge. The context of virtual can be disorienting because it is unfamiliar and so different from what we are used to in person. Let's illustrate this with an analogy. Imagine you were suddenly thrown into space on a spacecraft. Let's imagine you had a pressurized cabin with oxygen which kept you alive. Gravity works differently. You start moving in 3 dimensions instead of 2, and moving around feels completely different. You experience touch differently because your feet aren't grounded. There is no ground. If you were a trained astronaut, you'd be totally fine. If anything, you'd be exhilarated because you were prepared for the context so you could navigate it and enjoy it. But if you weren't prepared for the context of space, you might get anxious, frustrated, and maybe queasy. When people suddenly go from the familiar in-person to the unfamiliar virtual, it's like going from Earth to space. When we meet physically, we know how to go about it based on our understanding of the context. While having a conversation, that familiar physical context fills in the spaces that we do not explicitly cover. It helps us understand the situation, read the room, and steer our conversations with other people. When we meet virtually, we can get disoriented because we're not yet used to the context. In this unfamiliar territory, we don't have the familiar norms and interaction rituals of the physical world. We don't have subtle cues such as the full body language of a person to build a context. To summarize, virtual meetings pose several challenges. To sustain a healthy conversation with people during a meeting, we need to have an understanding of context. Many people have virtual interactions where context is not yet well understood, and many people are not yet aware of how we can use more of our senses in virtual. Without a good footing, people put in extra effort to sustain interactions and conversations, which leads to strenuous cognitive load. Being in situations that lack clear purpose, such as many virtual social gatherings, can also cause challenges around emotional well-being. The power of rituals for virtual meetings. When we face an unfamiliar context that disorients and challenges our well-being, we look for tangible things and experiences to hold on to. These tangible things and experiences give us a sense of control and order. One vivid example of this is a toddler's security blanket. When a child begins to perceive that she is a different person than her parents, She is in disarray, like that non-astronaut in space. Growing into independence is exhilarating, but it's also disorienting on many different levels. Emotions are like an iceberg, with some delight above water, but a lot of fear and anxiety beneath the surface. The security blanket helps the child to adapt to this new state of being. Later in life, instead of a security blanket, we use and sometimes invent rituals to overcome anxiety that comes with new circumstances. Rituals, in that sense, are an evolutionary human invention to adapt and grow into new states of being. Rituals from the Trobriand fisherman tribe in Papua New Guinea tell us a lot about how rituals can help people in times of unfamiliarity. The tribe has two distinct fishing practices. When the fishermen fish in the safe harbor of the nearby lagoon lake, they go about their fishing routine without any ceremony. When the fishermen decide to fish in the open waters of the ocean, they deploy elaborate magic rituals to feel safe. Rituals provide them perceived control. In-person meetings are our safe harbor, and virtual meetings are our open waters. Rituals can address the contextual unknowns of the virtual relationships. Rituals can mitigate the risks associated with those unknowns by emotionally and mentally preparing people. How do rituals work and address such a fundamental need for adaptation? Rituals are complex experiences. They can operate at different scales at once. From a bird's-eye view, rituals can give form to an entire experience, such as a graduation ceremony. From a first-person view, rituals can also shape how two people interact when they first meet, such as a greeting ritual. On both scales, it helps people to adapt and live well with other people and their environment. Ritual does this by taking a mundane, routine moment and flips it into something meaningful and special. What do we mean by ritual? In our work over the years, we've observed that people use practices, games, activities, and routines interchangeably with rituals. To clarify what we mean by ritual, we will give our working definition. Rituals are acts that we perform with intention following a pattern. They involve a symbolism that helps us invest and harvest meaning in those special moments. The power of rituals comes from flipping mundane moments into special ones. Moments are the ingredients of rituals, as flour is for bread. The strength of rituals comes from elevating negative or dull emotions in those moments to positive emotions with energy. Before we go further, let's make a clear distinction between a routine and a ritual. Rituals have routine qualities in that they are repetitive and require you to follow a pattern. However, unlike routines, rituals are conscious and intentional. A routine is unconscious and unremarkable. A ritual is mindful and memorable. When rituals lose their intention, they decay into routines that hold less meaning. Let's illustrate with a simple example: the "How are you?" greeting at the beginning of a meeting. If people respond in a reflexive, "Fine, how are you?" regardless of how they are really doing, that's more like a routine. If people intentionally share how they are really feeling, that's closer to a ritual of checking in with each other. Rituals have 5 qualities that can help turn mundane virtual meetings to meaningful experiences. 1. Rituals can help us clarify, reinforce, and renew purpose. Have you ever been to a meeting where it wasn't clear why you were meeting, where there wasn't a clear purpose? This is extra awkward in virtual meetings. Why? Most people are still figuring out how to read intentions and convey intentions in the context of a virtual meeting. When the purpose of a meeting is unclear and people's intentions are unclear, the ingredients for commonality are missing. A ritual can help a group articulate a purpose, why group members are meeting, by making intentions explicit with ritual actions and words. Rituals can also connect the ritual participants, mentally and emotionally. Research on high-quality connections by University of Michigan professor Jane Dutton and her collaborators shows how connecting with people is a critical aspect of teamwork. When we have high-quality connections with other people, we feel positive regard, mutuality, and vitality. Positive regard is the sense that someone sees the best in us. Mutuality means we feel a sense of responsiveness and openness from another person. Vitality is the energy we feel when deeply connected to someone else. If we do not form these relational connections, it's more difficult to get things done as a group. When people connect, they can internalize the group's intention as their own and move together toward the purpose gracefully. 2. Rituals can bring order by giving shape to virtual experiences. The other big challenge we articulated earlier is the cognitive overload many of us experience when we virtually meet. We need to spend more mental and emotional energy when in unfamiliar and disorienting terrain. One way to reduce cognitive load is to shape virtual meetings well so people use less mental power. Rituals are designed experiences that give form and structure. What might be that form and structure? Artistic experiences can give us a clue, such as the three-act structure for many Hollywood movies. Whether we are talking about Star Wars or When Harry Met Sally, there's setup, confrontation, and resolution. That structure helps give a shape to that movie. We'll talk more about what we can learn from movies in Chapter 3. Similarly, a well-crafted meeting has different sections that give it shape, along with transitions to connect the pieces together. There are ritual moments that can mark these stages of the experience, and these markers can help navigate the less familiar terrain of virtual meetings. Many of the rituals in this book can help you shape your virtual meetings. 3. Rituals can visualize our desired states/goals. When we are in unfamiliar territory, we rely on our imagination to fill in the gaps in our understanding. Barbara Tversky calls this one of the laws of cognition. The mind fills in missing information. For instance, you might be having a hard time reading where people are, mentally and emotionally, during a virtual meeting. Your mind fills that gap based on your past experiences, and it may or may not be terribly accurate. Alternatively, rituals can help team members to fill that gap together by activating people's imaginations with symbols and symbolic acts. Rituals help us visualize the desired state for that situation. In ritualistic moments, we suspend reality to get closer to the desired state we yearn for. As Clifford Geertz said, in a ritual, the world as lived and the world as imagined turn out to be the same world. The Olympic workout ritual in Chapter 6, for instance, brings the symbolism around superathletes. By picking Serena Williams, the participant enters an imagined space where she can be a Serena Williams for several minutes by performing a micro-workout. In this ritual, the suspension of reality helps the participant to act out a super-athlete role. Let's illustrate the imaginative power of ritual with one from the Bororo tribe in Brazil. Bororo tribes live in the Amazon, and macaw parrots are an important part of their culture. These birds are representatives of gods and ancestors. The tribe has a coming-of-age ritual where young men wear feathers of macaws and perform a dance to become one of the adult men. By identifying themselves with the macaws, they become one of the Bororo men. By wearing their feathers, they fly like the souls of their ancestors. Everyday life is transformed into a sacred moment for these young men. In a classroom setting, you can create a tangible symbol to support the learning objectives of your class. At work, new employees can benefit from team-specific symbols to familiarize themselves with the team culture and become part of a team as they internalize the team symbol. 4. Rituals can create a healthy rhythm in virtual meetings with clear cues, gestures, and phrases. When we are together in the same physical space in a ritual, we can read people's faces and body gestures to understand and respond to them. We know when to take turns, when to listen. We know from neuroscience that people mirror each other to empathize with each other and synchronize with each other. There's a rhythm to these interactions. If the rhythm is off, people will feel off. In virtual meetings, we're less confident in developing the rhythm of interactions because we don't yet have clear cues. For example, have you ever been in a video meeting and had trouble getting a sense of when another person is about to stop talking? Um, is it my turn now? Or are you about to say more? Rituals can reduce awkwardness by creating clear turn-taking cues, using gestures and phrases. To better design these gestures and phrases, we can borrow from the work of Irving Goffman, one of the most influential sociologists of the 20th century. Goffman described our interactions as a pattern with 3 steps. 1. Initiation, showing I am about to start a conversation. 2. Turn-taking, continuing from where another person left off. And 3. Leave-taking, signaling and ending a conversation. In this model, we start our interactions with others with simple rituals like a greeting ritual. After initiation, the rest is a chain of turn-takings. For instance, I express a thought, signal the end of my talking, and stop. The other person responds to me and stops. Then, I continue from where the other person left off, and so on. We close our interactions with a leave-taking, which means signaling to the other person to end the conversation, such as a farewell gesture. Here's an example. Initiation. A. Hello, how are you doing? B. Great, I'm doing fine. How about you? A. Doing all right, thank you. Turn-taking. A. I saw that you completed the section on rituals. B. Yes, I also worked on the illustrations. A. Leave-taking. A. All right, we covered a lot today. We are at the hour. Talk to you next week. B. Yep, it was a great session. Have a nice rest of the day. In virtual meetings, designing cues for Goffman's interaction patterns might be relatively easy. Imagine if we had gestures and phrases that everyone understands to indicate when a person is done taking a turn and when they would like a turn to talk. For example, in the Pass the Mic ritual, in Chapter 10, when the person talking is done with their turn, they can use a prop and a gesture. This reinforces that the person now is done with her turn. Designing cues doesn't have to be complicated. Parents of young children do it all the time, because sometimes they don't want little Johnny to know that we're not having pizza tonight, like we usually do on Tuesdays. So do young people going on double dates? Because if I make the secret signal, we're going to find a way to hit eject. 5. Rituals can energize people with emotional and mental payoff moments. When people engage in a ritual, it energizes them and elevates their well-being. Randall Collins coined the term emotional effervescence for this payoff quality that can emerge from a ritual. This energy can physically recharge, emotionally connect, mentally satisfy, and spiritually align people with their purpose. Schwartz and Lair identified these 4 kinds of energy that can be channeled with rituals and other intentional practices. These payoff moments are also what makes rituals stick. For instance, Marika Rizzo told us about a meditation ritual she runs with her team to help clear their minds and prepare them for the meeting. One time, when she forgot the ritual, a couple of teammates reminded her to run the ritual. For them, the emotional payoff was strong enough to insist on the ritual. Successful rituals have this power to move people and contribute to their well-being in subtle yet effective ways. From this point of departure to the journey ahead. By making intentions clear, giving structure to experiences, visualizing desired states, and facilitating interactions with clear cues and signals, rituals transform dull and awkward moments into meaningful and graceful moments. We will show how these principles manifest themselves in specific rituals. This book will help you engage people and strengthen relationships in your virtual life. We will help you understand principles by showing you how they work in practical use, demonstrating with rituals from a variety of people, including us. We'll give you some backstory on how these rituals emerged and evolved. We'll include practical suggestions for adapting them to your context, and we'll profile practitioners and experts who are leading the way to rituals for better virtual meetings. Part 1 of this book, which includes Chapter 1, describes how rituals make virtual meetings more engaging, productive, and meaningful. In Chapter 2, we define and articulate the elements of a meeting and how rituals can help shape those elements. We then explain 6 ritual keys to unlock the path for more satisfying meetings. In Chapter 3, we explore the secret science of virtual meetings, how we can make virtual more human by understanding our underlying needs and drawing from fields such as movie making, cognitive science, and game design. Part 2 of the book describes various rituals for virtual meetings. In Chapter 4, we showcase rituals for opening and closing meetings. In Chapter 5, we feature rituals for focus, engagement, and flow. In Chapter 6, we address issues around Zoom fatigue and rituals that can help individuals and teams to rejuvenate and increase resilience. In Chapter 7, we share rituals for building connections and relationships. In Chapter 8, we address challenges around one-to-one meetings. In Chapter 9, we feature rituals for transitions and shifting culture. Part 3 of the book looks at areas beyond work. In Chapter 10, we demonstrate rituals for teaching and training. In Chapter 11, we showcase rituals for virtual social gatherings. Think of the rituals in this book like recipes in a cookbook. When you read a cookbook, you probably don't expect to make every single dish. Instead, you look at different possibilities to see which dishes might be exciting for you and for the people you're cooking for. You may follow a recipe exactly, or you might use it more for inspiration to launch you into your own dish idea. We'll be excited to hear about the tasty meals of rituals you put together to nourish yourself and others with meaning. As you explore the different rituals ahead, keep these key takeaways in mind. 1. Meetings are the cornerstone for human connection, getting things done, and building relationships. Meetings are good when they are done right, whether they are in person or virtual. 2. Virtual meetings are challenging due to the lack of norms and conventions, unfamiliarity of context, and limitations in technology. 3. Rituals are a way to get to good meetings. 4. Rituals can help us clarify, reinforce, and renew purpose. 5. Rituals can bring order by giving structure to virtual experiences. 6. Rituals visualize our desired states, goals. 7. Rituals synchronize our virtual interactions by cues, gestures, and phrases. 8. Rituals energize people with emotional, mental payoff moments.